My very special guest has been in software sales for longer than he cares to talk about. He built and ran the Velocity sales team at Black Duck Software, an application security company, and today he leads the revenue team for the Predictive Index, where he espouses the talent optimization discipline with his sales and marketing teams. He is Jim Sparadolozzi. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thanks, Matt. Good to be here.
Now, you and I have had a chance to work at PI together for many years, and I have told you this before. I've always been impressed by your sales philosophy when it comes to hiring and developing sales professionals. So I wonder if you can just get us started by giving us a high-level view of your approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think one of the big differences between the way I sort of think about sales and the way a lot of sales leaders and business executives think about sales is I have a strong belief that sales is a skill that can be taught. And that allows sales to be thought of as a place to hire entry-level folks who don't have a lot of experience. And if you think about it that way, that allows you to sort of free or expand your overall talent pool from sort of the traditional people with sales experience to a more enlightened view of anyone, anyone who's interested, anyone who's motivated. And in particular, because we're at PI, anyone who has the behavioral traits that make strong salespersonship work, right? And that could depend on what you're selling, who you're selling it to, and the like. But there are some things that are very common to high-performing sellers across industries, across product lines, etc. And one of them is proactive. And then another one, which is maybe a little bit more unique to me, but I'm not alone, is adherence to process, following a process. If you can sort of find a way to tease that out of folks, lower your bar from 5 years experience to 0 experience, and start actually even discounting some of those experience metrics. Like each year of experience could be thought of as learning to sell a way that isn't the right way for you and your business. And if I can find proactive, adheres to process folks with high cognitive ability, now I can develop a training program to create the perfect salesperson and the perfect sales team for my business.
I'm with you 100% on that. I was really fortunate. I consider my career to have been exposed to sales professionals at such an early age. I was a product guy, so I was all obsessed with the software like most product people are. But they found out I was pretty okay in front of customers. So I got to attend all the sales trainings and learn more about the sales process and facilitating the buying process in particular. And really, it was impressive to me to see how much skill development does take place within a sales team. So I thought that it was really great. And in fact, I was introduced to PI and personality assessment in general because we were having trouble hiring the right salespeople for behavioral fit. It's how I got my start, for sure.
Strangely enough, so was I. Well, I would say not exactly the same, but I was actually introduced to DISC. I'm sure you're familiar with, of course, which is a model that is similar in science to PIs. And I was introduced to DISC as a way to sell better. So sales trainers would bring in this idea of understanding the buyer and tailoring your approach to the buyer, thinking about whether someone is dominant and letting them take the lead, or if someone is more social, letting them speak more in the conversation. And those things are all very relevant to how you sell. But it was actually at Black Duck, which you referenced earlier, that I was failing as a newly minted sales leader, newly minted VP of sales. I was finding that the folks that I would hire, where I was sort of saying I need 5-6 years experience, would quit routinely within 90 days of being hired, in part because the behavioral traits I was hiring for were based on my own gut feel for who I wanted to have sell. And when you do that, you tend to hire people who are like you. That's point number one. And in sales, you often tend to hire extroverts. And there's nothing wrong with being extroverted, but extroversion does tend to lead to a behavior that looks like talking a lot. And at least in my view, sales is better if there's a mix between listening and talking. And so the more extreme that extrovert is, the harder it is for them to adjust into listening mode, which is super important, as most sales pros would tell you. In addition to that, Uh, Someone who acts really well in an interview might be winging it, might not be adhering to a process and a structure. And you may find that if you're looking to have them conduct structured sales conversations, which is a core element of what I propose is best practices for selling, they may resist it. So I found that I was hiring too many highly extroverted people who were adverse to structured conversations. And I was promoting a sales program where it was much more about listening and having a structure to your approach. And I actually brought in PI to solve that challenge and had great results at Black Duck. And they were so great that I got the opportunity to meet with the leadership team here at PI, and eventually, of course, joined.
And I think that in that was when I first met you, was when we had a chance to have a conversation when you were evaluating whether you wanted to come on board at PI or not. And I was amazed at how much you talked about mindset and the philosophy
That's
again
right.
about from a seller's perspective. And it was very evolved in my view. And I really enjoyed that conversation. Why do you spend so much time talking about mindset when you're doing this training for entry level people? You've established the behavioral, the cognitive fit, but now you're getting into some things that I don't often see when I look at the sales training programs.
Yeah, well, I spend the time there because it's the most important factor in my belief for a salesperson's success is that they come to the table with the correct mindset, the correct belief system, and the correct attitude. And if they are playing the right role with the right belief system and right mindset, they'll have better results than if they're playing the wrong role. That's point number one. Point number two is it at least has been my experience that a lot of sales training, a lot of salespeople actually come to the table with the exact wrong mindset and belief system. And while they may still get results, they're not as optimal as they could if they would shift gears. And that's not all that much of a surprise because the belief system and mindset that I see a lot is that salespeople's job is to play the role of salesperson and to try to convince people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. And that belief set and mindset, that belief system, attitude, mindset, role is so far off from what at least I believe to be true and needed in the profession that I spend a lot of time trying to make sure that as folks come on board into the profession of selling, that they start with a mindset and an attitude that I'm here to help. My job is to help my client come to a positive change or execute a positive change for their business, whether that mean they're in some sort of pain situation, they want to get out of it, or they're seeking a gain, they want to achieve it. It all requires that we help buyers make a change, which means they have to identify what that problem is and what that gain is. They have to be the one vocalizing that gain or pain, and they have to be at least a big part of the change management plan that is made. And if you do all that with the idea that this should be in the best interest of the prospect, the client that I'm working with, you tend to not only get better results because the client can really see that difference. They can sense that difference between someone trying to sell them something and someone actually trying to help them uncover a problem and solve it. It's much the difference between going to see a therapist and feeling like that therapist is pushing their ideas on you, and going to a therapist and feeling like this therapist is listening to me. They're hearing about my concerns. They're letting me do the talking. And together we come up with a plan of attack for whatever problem or challenge I face. And so the mindset becoming, I'm not a salesperson, I'm a business therapist, is really meaningful. And especially early on in your career, if you can start at that point, you can really build a much more successful career. And if you have a whole army, not a literal army, but a lot of people behaving as helpers, then your buyers are going to respond better to you as a company and you as a sales organization.
It's timely because I think we've seen this evolution in just the access to information where sales, even when I first started, however many, 15 years ago plus, there's so much more opportunities to go to things like G2 and do your homework, and you can find out a lot of information. Whereas before there was really an information dissymmetry, so to speak. So now, I really like the evolved mindset that you're describing because I think it's just a better fit for really what's needed in complex, selling situations for sure. But I want to move us forward just a little bit. So in every job, we take our top performers and we do something brilliant. We make them managers. maybe
Yeah.
sometimes without even asking them if they want to.
When
But
you
my
don't.
question to you is this: let's say that I've just promoted a high-performing sales professional into their first sales management role. What do you think, Jim? That what advice or what should we keep in mind, both me and the new manager?
Sure. Well, the good news is for salespeople, if you think about it the right way, a lot of what you're doing when you're selling is leadership. We're trying to get other people to do things that are in their own best interest, but also aligned with our vision. And that is essentially the job of a leader. And in my view, I think you would agree, the best managers focus on leadership development. So there's a skill around managing, there's a skill around leading, but to be a great manager, I think you need to be a great leader. And salespeople come to the table having developed through sales work a lot of the tools, listening well, asking lots of great questions, helping folks come to their own ideas, and then supporting those ideas, and planning and change management and project management, all part of most sales work. Um, and of course, it's a job of influence, and so influencing others as a manager or leader or salesperson, much the same. The challenge with salespeople, and I think this is true of anyone who's sort of a individual contributor, as we say in the business, someone who doesn't have managerial experience, reporting relationships, or positional power over others. As an individual contributor in a sales role, you often feel sort of a pride of ownership of the deal. You feel the value you create for the business is closing deals, right? There's no doubt that ringing the bell, as we say, and getting the deals done is really exciting, and you get I don't know if it's a dopamine hit, but you get something that makes you feel good when you close that deal. And you probably got promoted because you're really good at that. Now, as a leader, as a manager of other salespeople, you break from that value point. Closing deals is no longer your job. But you were promoted because you're good at closing deals, and you continue to sort of feel, when I close a deal or I get involved with a deal, I'm creating the value that my company asks of me, and that's what makes me feel secure in my position and pride about my progress, etc. As a leader, you have to break from that, and I've seen many sellers who are great essentially take their sellers and turn them into admins, and they run the deal.
Mm.
And sometimes those salespeople who know that I'm in charge of the overall organization will come to me and say, I don't think this person's a good manager. And that's sort of their perception. This person's not a good manager. And you go, why? Well, they won't let me do the work. They won't let me sell. And so as you transition from any individual contributor to leader role, manager role, your job shifts from doing the work to actually more difficult work. And I like to use the acronym TIE to describe, TIE, what that work becomes, because people go, well, what is my work now? Well, as a leader, as a manager, TIE, you teach. You're in the position because you know how to sell, but your job isn't to sell. Your job is to teach what you know so that more people can be as good as you. Then you inspire, right? You need to find ways to get the people that are in your charge to want to do the thing that you've taught them to do, to be excited about it. And part of inspiring people comes through helping develop their mastery, as Dan Pink would tell us from the book Drive, helping develop their mastery, uh, helping them have autonomy, letting them do the work, right? And giving them a sense of purpose. So leaders need to focus on developing mastery, allowing autonomy, and the sense of purpose that comes with being a part of your organization and being on your team or representing your product line. What is that sense of purpose, and how do you connect your people to it? And the last piece, I alluded to it when I said autonomy. The last part of TIE, teach, inspire, last part is empower. TIE, empower. And that's the hardest part for sellers who are now managers, is to empower their people to do the work. You've taught them, they're inspired to do it. You got to let them go, and you got to let them do it.
A lot of that is letting go of your identity. You really relish yourself of making President's Club every year, and being the
Yeah.
person they can always count on to carry the number and get us over the finish line. I think now all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, you've ripped away a big part of of who I thought I was. That's why have always been so impressed with you. Going back to the mindset, is that it really is I don't want to say it's a mind game, but certainly the mental approach has such an influence on our long-term performance.
The shift between I'm here because I can close deals to I'm here because I can help others close deals. I can teach others to close deals. I can create a team of people who are closing deals without my intervention. And the more you can get out of the business of doing that sales work, which was your primary point of value for the company, the better for you, the better for your employees, better for the customers, the better for the company, because that's how an individual leader can scale their own capabilities across large pools of folks.
A lot of times, we talk about psychological safety and how it's so important. And I think there's something that a manager can do, a sales manager in this case, or I should say probably a sales director or sales executive, to make sure the manager feels like, hey, you're going through this transition. These are some things you might experience, et cetera. But the individual has to create their own safety as well. They have to give themselves permission to go through that phase of, it feels a little awkward. I think that's a really important part of it is also.
They really do. And going back to attitude, one of the things I share with new sellers, which is also important for new leaders, new managers, is that your attitude about yourself is the most important part of your success equation. If you come to the table thinking, I only get value from the work I do, then it's really hard when you lose a deal as a seller or can't jump in and close the deal as the leader. But if you come to the table with the idea that I'm a valuable human being, I can feel great about myself because my mind, body, and spirit are all in a great place when I walk in the door of work or turn on the virtual work screen, however you do it these days. If you come to the table feeling great about yourself as a human being, separated from your role as a business person, seller, leader, manager, etc., then it's easier to do what we just said. You'll have a better attitude, and you'll be able to break. You'll be able to break that wall.
And I think that helping people, as you had said, that all leaders do, certainly the best sellers do, really comes down to this kind of a very interpersonal type of relationship. And it reminds me of a guest that I had on recently, Steven Rogelberg, and he was talking about the one-on-one meetings. And he blew me away with how much sanctity almost he gave the one-on-one meeting, because this was the chance for the manager and their direct report to really meld. And we talked about it in generic terms, but I wonder, Jim, if you might tell me, when you think about one-on-one meetings between a sales manager and their sales professional, like what goes on, or how are they different or similar to what you might think of for any one-on-one meeting?
I think one-on-one meetings are likely different in the specific content and agenda items you might have on a one-to-one based on all the different roles that you might have. So as a revenue leader, I have the pleasure of meeting with marketing folks and talking about marketing agenda items, meeting with product folks and talking about product direction, roadmaps, and the like, and meeting with sales leaders and salespeople, where we are more likely to be talking about things like pipeline and deals and lead flow. So the agenda items are going to be different. However, the structure of a one-to-one is much the same, which is to say that in my view, the one-to-one is sacred time for the person being led, the employee. It's their sacred time to be heard, to be listened to, for you to understand what their pain is, for them to communicate up to you what is making their job harder. And then your job is to listen, to help them come to solutions, just like you would be if you were in the seat trying to sell a new project or a new software product or a new manufacturing plant, whatever it is you sell to a buyer. When you're in the seat of a seller, your job is to listen, understand what those problems are, and help that buyer come to their own conclusions as to how to solve it. Now, of course, as a leader, you may have additional powers to be able to move things around and help folks make things happen. In a sales situation, there may be a discount that person needs approved that you have the ability to do, or things like that. And of course, you have conversations about why you should do it, whether or not you should do it, what's the right strategy for approving a discount, not approving a discount, those kinds of things. But it's really about, for me, and I think there's different philosophies on this, it's really about that person being led, having the time given to them from you, your time, to listen to them and help them uncover what their problems are and solve them.
It's a really powerful anchoring connection to the organization. Somebody's got my back, somebody's listening. I think the gesture of, you care about me as more than just somebody who's bringing in a number. You're trying to foster my growth and development. These are very powerful things that outside of the context of the one-on-one, sometimes, they can really get overlooked.
Yeah. And one of the first questions I ask a new seller is, if you get to a point where you're successful selling and you're making a lot of money, what is it you want to do with that money? Because it's not about the deal or the money. It's about, what are we doing with our lives, and how does being in a sales role or leadership role, marketing, whatever role you're in, how does that help you support your life and the things you're trying to do with it? Whether you want to build a family, have a nice car, travel more, those are the things that are motivating people to work hard, because those are the things that they desire and that they want to have as part of their life. And sales or business is really just a means to get there. And it's an important means, it's an important part of our life, but it really shouldn't be the most important. And therefore, it shouldn't be the most or the first thing you ask them about, like, how are we going to sell more? But what are you going to do with the money you make when you sell more? Is a more important question.
Yeah, and ironically, when people are more committed both to the organization, to their role, contrast that with what you were experiencing at Black Duck. I can't imagine how gut-wrenching it is to have somebody leave after 90 days because you're like, I thought I just plugged a hole in my territory. Now I got somebody else who's coming in on a ramp. Like, how am I ever going to get to that number? And I'm making my other experience. So it's like, we think we don't have time, or we think it's not really the place where we start. But I love what you're suggesting, which is like, when you go to those places first and realize that that's the bedrock, if you will, then performance will follow. So
yeah, that's right. And in my case, I wish it was just one sales rep leaving. It was 2/3 of the sales rep I hired left within 90 days. And that was happening consistently for a long enough time that I needed to make some changes. And that's the business person in pain. That was me. And I was lucky enough to find a way to go from that situation to a situation where it was a 4-year run of almost zero involuntary or voluntary, attrition, which means people weren't quitting. In the sales world, and just like many businesses, you're often having to help people who are not performant find their way to a role where they could be. And oftentimes that means they leave the organization and go somewhere else. And that happens, and that happened there as well. But we weren't experiencing anywhere near the level of people quitting because they weren't the right fit for what we were trying to do. Instead, we were able to grow a team of 9 inside sellers to about 150 inside sellers, going from mostly a lead gen team to a team that was generating half of the net new ACV, or annual contract value, that the company was building. And it was a really exciting time. And that 150 people was also international. I was able to find ways to hire sellers in other cultures, other countries, who didn't even speak the language I spoke, by understanding them behaviorally first, and then going from there and building on top.
Yeah, and I think it's a very holistic approach. When you start bringing in the mindset, the behaviors, the values, almost the things that you've been talking about today. And one thing I think, when we start talking about the interest in connecting with people and helping them learn because you're hiring less experienced people, I think the role of feedback becomes really, really critical. So when you think about, in this case, some people might believe, especially if you're not in a sales role, that what feedback do you need? You're either making your number or you're not. But I think that I'd love to get your take on what role does feedback play, in this whole process that we've been talking about, in terms of helping somebody get to high levels of sales performance and even to become an effective sales leader.
Sales or otherwise, leadership is two big things. We talked about teach, inspire, empower. So I gave you 3 things already. Let's talk about 2 more that are really about teaching to an extent. They're also about inspiring. They help with those things. There's 2 things that you can do that are going to allow you to teach, allow you to inspire, make it easier to empower folks in a way that you can trust they'll get the job done. And they're all about setting expectations. Something that very much should happen in a one-to-one meeting with someone. My expectation of you is this. And once you've set that expectation, then your job becomes giving feedback as to whether or not the person is exhibiting behaviors that are aligned with your expectation, or behaviors that are not. And so the feedback can be you call praise, right? Good feedback. And it can be what you might call a redirect. Most people call this negative or constructive. I like the word redirect, which I believe I stole from the 1 Minute Manager, which is one of the better early tombs on leadership. But if you've set high quality expectations and you're giving high quality feedback, both praise and redirecting people toward the expectation when they don't meet it, then it becomes a self-sustaining feedback loop that allows people to continuously get a little bit better every day. And when people are getting a little bit better at their job every day, of course, you can imagine your sales results will also get a little bit better, if not a lot better, every day. And your employee, the person you're leading, will also feel that mastery develop, right? And I like to say, do you have a hobby? You have a hobby, Matt?
Lots of hobbies.
What's your favorite hobby?
I say woodworking. I enjoy it.
Woodworking. Woodworking is a great example of something you can master. Now, someone like you is probably so good at woodworking that you can retire and earn a living woodworking, but I don't know, I'm teasing. But let's pretend that you were someone who wasn't very good at woodworking. You couldn't make a living doing woodworking, but you do it anyway. And one of the big reasons is because you can feel your progress toward getting better at woodworking. And that feeling of progress and getting better at something is highly motivational. And if you're giving people, whatever role they are, sales or otherwise, the kind of feedback that makes them have that same feeling they have when they're doing their woodworking or other hobbies, then they're going to be as motivated to do that work as they are the things they do for fun in their spare time. It'll be just as fulfilling, and maybe more so, depending on the situation.
And I think this really brings us full circle where you're talking about hiring to a very different profile. We don't need the 5 years of experience in enterprise sales roles, et cetera, because when you hire for the behavioral, the cognitive fit and develop them, but you're setting this contract, if you will, social contract of growth, of investment, of mutuality, of trying to make sure that the organizational commitment and throughput and performance is there, but really starting with the seller's mindset and then translating that mindset as they grow through the ranks to become sales managers, sales directors, and beyond. So you can understand, I think, why this is such a next level sales approach that involves such a holistic take, and why I've always enjoyed every chance that we have to talk about sales development in this way.
It really makes me think of the mindset shift that I undertook in order to have a lot of these elements work well. Because in the sales world, often the entry level sales folks, especially in the tech space, and I would imagine there's something similar in other industries, is considered to be part of a farm team, like in baseball, a farm team, which is an analogy that I rejected. Because the idea of a farm team, if you think about it in baseball, is we get everybody in to the farm team, everyone who come in, and only a select few make it to the big leagues, right? In the sales world, that's what we might call a business development rep, someone who might make cold calls or handle inbound leads, becoming what we call an account executive, someone who closes deals, and then beyond that, senior executive, senior account executive, sales manager, etc. Well, if you think about it as a farm team, then that means you're hiring anybody, and you're sort of only promoting those select few into those AE ranks. And I don't like that analogy because it's a lot of waste. There's a lot of folks that don't make it. And it sort of says, well, I'm not going to make the right investment in my people. I'm just going to put a lot of volume in and see what goodness pops up and harvest it like a baseball would harvest their farm team. And of course you have a team that's the farm team that's constantly having talent removed from it. So the best people just leave and it's a constant battle. Instead, I like to think about this whole program, a whole sales team, as an officer training school, right? And if you think about what the military does when they're building up their officer ranks, is they only bring in the best of the best. They have different systems and processes in place to make sure that the best people enroll in their officer training schools. And the expectation is that everybody moves up. And that is a different level of investment in the individual that the individual themselves can really feel. So I think that's a better analogy, that if you're running an officer training school, you bring less people in, but they're of the top quality. and then everyone is expected to move up. And an important part of that is, even though we're teaching sales as the job to be done, we're actually developing leaders as the result. And so for your business, what you end up getting is not just great salespeople, but great leaders. And all businesses could use more great leaders. Why not use whatever entry level positions you have in your particular company, in many cases that might be sales, to also develop your future and your leadership ranks.
I think it's a unique fit to your sales style too, where you're talking about it's a leadership, a therapeutic approach, almost a helper approach. So it makes total sense, so the symmetry between the expectations you're setting, the way that you're modeling the recruitment and the development, the expectations that you're managing, I think it all fits together really nicely. And that's why I enjoy it so much. But Jim, I'll get you out of here with my easiest question of all. Where can my listeners go to learn more about you?
Well, in my case, I don't think anyone really has any interest in learning about Jim Spartalozzi. Of course, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you do look for Jim Spartalozzi, you'll find either me or my uncle. If you can't tell us apart, get your eyes checked. I'm the one with the beard. And I'd rather you go look at the Predictive Index. It's sponsoring the show here. You can see it here. Think about if some of these ideas resonate, if some of these ideas are bringing in folks who are not necessarily the highest skilled for your area, but have the most behavioral fit for whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it's sales, marketing, production, etc. Seek out one of our partners. Come to our website, predictiveindex.com. Ask for a demo. We'll get in touch with you, and you will know that the sellers that reach out will be there to help you make a positive change for your business, not try to sell you something you wouldn't otherwise need.
There you go. And listeners, I'm going to have those links for you in the show notes. So you're only one click away from learning more about PI and about connecting with Jim if you'd like to. Jim, thanks so much for spending some time with me today. Really appreciate it.
Of course, Matt.